was kind of painful back then. Where we've gotten now with successive levels of reductions time and time again, you just finally get to the point where you are cutting pretty vital services. We're cutting things that we wouldn't want to cut, nobody wants to cut. We're at the point where we're looking at higher education, for example, and not someplace where we wanted to be, but as a state we have to have a balanced budget, and we've made just about all the other reductions we can. But the good news is we have kept the budget in balance. We're not facing some of the problems that the other states are. Illinois, for example, has severe problems because they have been basically not able to make some of those reductions, and they are so far behind on their payments right now that even when the economy does start to turn around, they've got 2 years worth of bills backed up. And so they're going to have a big struggle that we in Missouri are not going to have, because we have managed this down in a fairly calm, rational, step-by-step method. I do want to say one other thing, and then we can open it up for discussion if that's okay with you. Anybody who's read anything about states wanting to declare bankruptcy, we don't. I don't know if anybody's seen the articles in the New York Times. Yeah, we're getting so many questions from people. States don't need to declare bankruptcy. We have the ability to manage our budgets down. That's what we've done in Missouri. And any discussion around it just throws our bond market into a tizzy. The people who hold our bonded debt in Missouri and other states start to wonder if we're going to default on our debt. And we are not, never have, never will. We're a AAA state, which means the rating agencies all rate us as being the most secure form of debt anywhere. So we're obviously not going to default, but we also would prefer not to have any of these discussions about bankruptcy, because it's really not, it's not helpful, and it's not something states would ever do. But with that, I'm happy to answer questions if people have particular issues.
Before you get to the question, it might be helpful to explain to everybody, you've got about a $23 billion budget, where that money comes from, and how much the legislature and the governor really have any control over out of that budget.
Okay. It is about $23 billion. Of that, about $8 billion is what we refer to as state general revenue. And those general revenue funds are really the flexible funds in our budget that can be used for any purpose, and are largely used for really three areas of use and tag-alongs. K through 12 education gets about 35%, a little bit over that. Higher education gets about 10%. Between the two of them, almost 50%. The rest of it, about half of it, goes to what we call Medicaid, medical assistance, which is health care for low-income seniors, disabled, and kids. And then the rest of it after that is spread across everything else: corrections, Department of Corrections, Department of Public Safety, agriculture, economic development, you name it. That's the rest of state government, what's left over there. The Medicaid budget, which is approximately a quarter, we really can do very little about because of the federal requirements. And we can go into that in detail if anybody wants to, but you have very little control. You can make some changes around the edges, but you cannot make significant reductions in the Medicaid budget because of federal requirements and a whole host of other issues. And then, of course, that leaves education and public safety. So there are no good choices.
Basically, if I remember correctly, about 85% of your budget the government legislature has control over is tied up in education, health care, and corrections.
Yeah.
And everything else falls into that last 15%.
Yes, it does.
So when political people of all stripes talk about what great savings they can make, and some